Now, before we welcome our next guest, it's time for us to go live to Adastral Park, BT's Global Research and Innovation HQ, where Lisa Perkins joins us. Hello, Lisa. Wow, how are you doing there? You all right?
I am doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, having a great time so far this morning. I'm getting a bit of an idea of what's going on there right now at Adastral Park, but for anyone who hasn't heard about what Adastral Park is, what it does, who it does it for, just fill in the gaps for us a bit, Lisa.
Oh, my pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk about the amazing stuff that happens at Adastral Park, because of course it is BT's global R&D centre. So we have something like 4,000 people based here at Adastral Park at our 100-acre campus with facilities galore to help us research and find the best innovations, both for ourselves as a company, but very critically for our customers as well. And I'm really delighted that over the years we've been joined by over 150 other companies as part of our Innovation Martlesham Tech Cluster. So we've got this thriving innovation ecosystem which really finds fantastic solutions to customer problems. And I'm stood here in our showcase, which is at the heart of the park, and the showcase is a collection of different situational pods, if you like. So I'm standing here in our agile bank, but I could be, and you will see this later, in our mini hospital. We have a mini shop, and so on. And what's really important about these is that it brings to life the art of the possible for our customers. So we host something like 60,000 visitors a year to our showcase, and that's even in the pandemic because we can bring them in virtually. Yep. And we can show them technology, and light bulbs go on for our customers in terms of how they can actually use that.
And in terms of bringing technology to life for customers as you do that, I think you've got a demo to try and bring some connected technology to life for us today, Lisa.
I absolutely do. So I have just described these situational contexts. We've been talking about smart cities. The team have brought to life what a smart city and the technology that can be deployed in a smart city through the art of Lego. And so it's my very great pleasure to introduce one of our fantastic innovation consultants, Shane Allen. Shane, over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Smart World Showcase. Now, what we've got here is obviously a Lego model. This Lego model is not just here for fun, though. It's here to represent a modern smart city. So a bustling city with lots going on, lots of vehicles moving throughout it, lots of people moving throughout it, lots of things that make that place quite inefficient. Now, what we've actually done is we've connected a number of sensors up into our smart city so that we can start to understand some of that movement throughout it and then turn the data that comes out of those sensors into useful information. Now, if you think about it, whenever you connect a device or a machine to the internet and it starts producing data, or sensors and things like that connected and giving data, the data is only useful if it's human readable, if you can do something with it. Now, how you would do that is you'd probably have dashboards. You'd create dashboards that give you a quick top-level view of all of the information coming in from various different sources, and then suddenly you've got something really powerful out of that data. Suddenly you've got actionable insight. You can look at the data, find inefficiencies or find problems and safety issues, and make efficiencies from it, make changes that can make that environment be better. Now, that's exactly what we've done here in this model, and there's a number of things that we've done in order to achieve that. Things like monitoring of car parking spaces. So in the real world, it would probably look a little bit like this. We've put one of these sensors over every parking space on our model. Now, the reason that's quite useful is because if you think about a city, they're usually quite busy. There's quite a lot of traffic moving throughout it, and oftentimes a lot of that traffic is people looking for a parking space. They're looking for somewhere to park so they can go and actually walk around in that city. Now, if you were to understand which spaces were free and which were busy, you could maybe have an app or a dashboard that could even tell people where the free spaces were, or they could even book a space. Well, then what would happen is that the traffic on the road would be reduced, because they don't need to be out searching around. They can just go straight to their destination, problem solved. That's going to have a knock-on impact. So you're not just going to reduce the amount of traffic that's on the road, you're probably going to make a bit of a bump into the pollution levels as well, because less vehicles on the road, less pollution. Can't be a bad thing. Now, we've also got context in this smart city because we've got lots of different sensors, not just parking sensors. So we've got things like ANPR, so automatic number plate recognition, which can tell us which vehicles are moving through the city and whether or not they've paid their car tax and things like that. Now, we've also got lighting control, so we can switch on lights only when people are walking underneath them, and that can create energy efficiencies. We've also got things like pollution sensors embedded throughout the city that can tell us where high pollution points are. And that might result in maybe a change in the way traffic light systems are working so that we can get vehicles moving quicker rather than being stuck in one position. And it might have a context in terms of cyclists. The reason I say that, I have a smart bike light here that's for cyclists to pop on the front of their bike. It's got a number of sensors embedded into it, and those sensors can talk to other sensors within the city. Now, in the trials that we did with this, there were some really, really great outputs from it. So we could understand movement of people through an environment on a bike. That could be quite useful because we can start to see patterns. Where do all the cyclists go? What are the routes that they take? Do we maybe need to introduce cycle routes that can make their route actually safer for them? We also had sensors embedded inside this bike light that could do things from a safety perspective. So things like a bump detector, so a little gyrometer. So if there's a big knock and suddenly it's on its side, that probably means that the bike has fallen over or that there might have been an accident. So that could trigger an event, such as perhaps contacting an emergency contact. That same bump detector can actually help us to detect potholes though, because if you're taking that same bike route every day, as you go over the bumps in the road, over time we're going to start to get a really good picture of the state of that road, how big the bumps are. That might allow us to preempt potholes and actually fix them before they become a big issue which can damage a person's vehicle. I mentioned context a moment ago. If we detect high pollution at a particular traffic junction moving through our city, we could reroute the cyclists through their Maps app so that they don't actually take that route. They don't go into the high pollution area and then don't potentially get ill from going through that high pollution zone. And that really speaks to me to the power of connected devices, the Internet of Things, IoT. All these sensors and all these data points are really, really useful if they help you to make something better. And that might be a safety thing, it might be an efficiency thing. But the point is, if you turn the data into something useful, so actionable insight, suddenly you can actually make a huge difference to an environment. And that might be something like a Lego model, it might be an individual building, or it could be an entire smart city.
I'm a big sucker for Lego and a big sucker for smart city tech as well, as it turns out, because the application of those technologies, I think, Lisa, is so very, very relatable. But talk to me about where else you're seeing smart city tech being used.
Oh, so just all over the place, actually, David. So Shane talked about actionable insight. That really is at the heart of this technology. How do we find the best insight upon which we can action and make decisions? So health is actually an area where we're really starting to trial some of this technology. Interesting stat for you, David. Did you know that by next year, research is telling us that we'll have more people over the age of 65 living at home on their own than people younger than 65. And out of that stat and out of the reality of this aging demographic that we have now, we're looking at how we can put this smart technology into people's homes so that as a carer or as a family member with caring responsibilities, you can keep in track with the individual that you might have some caring responsibility for. So via the use of these sensor technologies, looking at motion around the home, looking to see if the kettle has gone on, has the toilet been flushed. So you can get some data points in a non-intrusive fashion, but just to give you that sense or that confidence that the individual is moving about satisfactorily. Or conversely, if not, then it gives you the opportunity to take an intervention. So that's one example.
Yeah.
We're also talking to ports who are very interested in optimizing the data across their port environment. So how can they censor up what's happening with the freight, with the stock, and surveillance as well, in terms of making sure that they can keep their ports secure and bring all that data together to give them the opportunity to optimize their proceedings.
Super
One
stuff.
last one.
Oh. No.
Oh, sorry, one last one.
Go on.
Because I love this stat, David. Did you know that every year we lose more than 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water every year because through leakages across the whole of the water estate? So the other conversation we're having is with water companies in terms of how can we deploy this technology to monitor that and to optimize the use of water.
Yeah, smart infrastructure, smart pipelines. That's Olympic swimming pool stats is a really strong one. I'm pleased you insisted on putting that one in. We've been asking our audience in a poll about which new and emerging technologies they will be trialling or talking about in their organisation. Let's take a quick look on the screen and see what they say. They say, well, it fits in with your smart pipeline example there. Internet of Things is very much right at the top of people's conversations, Lisa. Very quickly, is this reflective on the conversations you're having with customers?
Absolutely. Our IoT demo gets so many hits and creates so much conversation because it's the actionable insight that all companies and organisations need to optimise.
Lisa, Shane, thank you very much indeed. And they'll be back later on for another live demo from Adastral Park. Adastral Park even. So for part 2, let's turn our gaze to sustainability and how technology can help organisations and indeed entire nations to reach their net zero targets. How about we head back over to Adastral Park, where I think Shane has rustled up another impressive 5G demo for us. Shane.
Thanks, and welcome back to the showcases. So next up, I'd like to talk about the art of the possible using a 5G connection. What could that really mean for us in practical terms? Now, in this particular trial that we did, we connected up an ambulance. So 5G capability for a thing that's always on the move. What extra things would that allow us to do that wouldn't have been possible before? Now, 5G allows for high speed, very low latency data transfer. And so in the trial that we did the obvious things where we sent a video feed, so what's happening in the back of the ambulance as the paramedic is carrying out a procedure on a patient. We also sent voice data so that the paramedic could actually remotely interact with a doctor. In this case, we actually also introduced an augmented reality headset so that both the paramedic and the doctor were each wearing one. And so as the paramedic is there in front of that patient, the doctor can actually be there as well. Virtually, they can see exactly what that paramedic could see. But then comes the really cool bit. We could also transmit over 5G touch feedback in real time. And that might sound like a strange concept, but we use something called a haptics glove. Now, haptics is touch feedback. That's the buzz you get on the screen of your phone when you press it. That's haptic feedback. The haptic glove, however, can allow you to remotely interact with things that aren't actually physically in front of you. Or it can simulate experiences. Or in the case of our 5G connected ambulance trial, the remote doctor had a joystick, and because they could see exactly what the paramedic was doing in real time with that low latency connection, they could actually guide the hand of the paramedic left, right, forward, down, up and down, that kind of thing, with that joystick, and allow them to carry out a procedure that normally a paramedic would not be able to do. Now, in this case, that was an ultrasound. Now, you might think that's a fairly simple thing to just run that over a person's skin, but actually it takes quite a long time to gain that qualification. The equipment's quite expensive, and it's not typically something you would find in an ambulance. However, in our trial, we were able to take that expertise of that doctor and give that to the paramedic so that they could carry out that ultrasound procedure on the patient without the need to bring them into the hospital. Now, if you think about that, that is a procedure you would normally have to go to hospital in order to carry out. And we've taken that out, moved that out of the hospital now, and taken that completely mobile. But this is just one example. What is the art of the possible? Well, truthfully, we don't know. There might be lots of applications we haven't even thought of yet, but this is just one great way where, through the use of a 5G connection, we've actually been able to help people out in the real world in a practical way using 5G.
That's a fascinating demonstration. Great to see 5G being put to use in all different kinds of ways, as we were hearing from Phil and seeing just there from Shane. Lisa, where else are you seeing 5G being put to use right now?
So many different applications. Actually, the last episode of one of these Future is Now sessions, if you remember, David, we talked about creating immersive and personalised viewing experiences, and we talked about our work with one of our innovation milestone companies, Condensed Reality, and creating volumetric video that can give you a real enhanced viewing experience to increase collaboration and working closely together around a particular project. But we've also got connected with the sort of the whole smart city scenario, some really exciting developments that 5G enables because of its high bandwidth and its low latency. Things like autonomous vehicles. So we're getting closer to the ability to be able to remotely control vehicles. And drones as well is another great example in terms of utilizing those high bandwidths, but having that low latency to be able to precisely land and drive drone technology. And I don't know if you've spotted it, but we have a new advert out with EE, which shows the application of 5G with this very precise application of shaving somebody with a blade up a mountain. So I'm not quite sure that we're going to see huge amounts of demand for that, but it's a great advert. And obviously the connected ambulance video that you've seen from Shane is, in my opinion, a kind of a more realistic experience of how we will see 5G bring these exciting new opportunities to life.
5G shaving up a mountain. I'm not sure I'm one for that quite yet, but you never know. You never know. Listen, Lisa and Shane, thank you so much for bringing technology to life for us today from Adastral Park. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you.